Hello, everybody. I am Elizabeth Ann Coleman, known mostly as Ann Coleman now these days, and I'm here with Mary Senko, and we're going to talk about a very, very special doll in her life. So, Mary, would you like to begin to explain how she came to you and why she's special?
I am excited to share, especially right now, with someone who really inspired me about this doll. This particular covered wagon china, which is attributed to Kestner and fits in nicely with the programs that the Grovian Doll Museum have recently presented online, was a result of my having grown up with a love of china dolls, porcelain dolls, and all kinds of dolls as a child. When I was 21, I had the joy of getting gifted to me the Encyclopedia of Doll Clothing that was written, researched, and developed by the Coleman family. And that doll book was an inspiration for me for 5 or 6 years, reading it cover to cover. Some of you may know me from having seen me at 2 Rose Percy events, which I chaired, and I knew exactly what page Rose Percy was on in that book, Anne. And I loved Rose Percy, and I loved the dolls with their wardrobes. When my little girl, who just graduated from fellowship at Stanford yesterday, when she was 3, her dad found this doll for me in an estate, and he had watched me for 5 years reading your encyclopedia. So isn't it
And you
special?
built up lots of muscles by reading that book.
It was heavy, and I read it. I sat in bed at night and read it. I sat and read it whenever I had time, and that book is what inspired me to really want to have a doll with a wardrobe. And look what I ended up with. Isn't she spectacular?
Couldn't be better. Couldn't be better if you and she tried to come together.
That's right. It was supposed to happen. This particular doll, I took a few minutes and wrote up a little bit of her provenance. She's a covered wagon doll, and when I first got her, I was told that she was a circa 1840. What do you think about that date, Anne?
I think, as in many instances when you have provenance, you have to think about the generation before the child, and it's usually associated with the generation that gave the doll to the child, not necessarily when the child played with it.
And there's a little tip that I think would be very important for doll collectors to know. So we think this doll is more 1850s.
Absolutely.
After we've discussed it. And this doll was given to Mary Elizabeth Hellier by Miss Ada Woodard of Ypsilanti, Michigan, when Mary was a girl of 10. I received this doll in 1986, and I wrote on my card, this was a number of years ago because I got it in 1986. The doll with all of her clothing had belonged to Ada Woodard's grandmother, who lived most of her life in Michigan for about 100 years. The frozen Charlottes that we have here that we're going to show.
The nice little size ones, which were the early ones,
Very
coming
early.
out at the same time as the doll itself.
Yeah, these were her dolls that were with her. And she also has a very sweet little tiny china that Anne didn't have a chance to see. We're going to show it to everyone.
Now, I suspect that this doll may be of an even later generation.
I think more maybe 60s, 70s.
If this doll was played by the next generation, this would have been the doll that came
Exactly, that they
together
were
with-
together.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I think. Well, this particular doll in her wardrobe is pretty fantastic. We're going to talk a little bit about the different pieces that she has on. First of all, let's just look at what she's wearing. She has a fabulous blue calico piece with a calico apron done in multi-sections. And you can see
And this was a very, very typical patterning for the
For that
aprons,
period.
yes. And if you notice here, this apron has no shoulder straps. This is a pinafore apron because you
pinned it.
pinned it.
Right.
And people forget that pinning clothes was a way of keeping them in place. It had been an 18th century technique, if not indeed before the 18th century.
Which is really
And
quite
I mean, it
interesting.
describes exactly what you do. You've got a pin off four.
There you
in
go.
front.
There you go. And she has some marvelous, marvelous whites, marvelous detail. We love the fact that her hem has been biased with a trim. She has her slips on.
And this serves a function. This helps keeps the skirts of the
Skirt
dress
down. Out and flared, and it also protected it from wear
if it reached the ground.
if it reached the ground.
But this is a girl, so
Right.
it doesn't reach the ground.
Which is also very important, a very important detail. She has her beautiful chemise, which we see the bottom of the chemise here, and her pantaloons.
Pantalettes.
Excuse me.
Boys wear pantaloons
Pantaloons.
and girls wear pantalettes.
We just were talking about that. And she has hand-knitted lacy socks, and look at these socks. Someone did a beautiful job with knitting those.
Those were done on a machine.
You think so?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
I'm learning some things out there in the doll world, people. There's lots to be learned.
Knitting machines, if I remember correctly, were developed during the reign of Queen Elizabeth the
Okay.
first,
Okay.
not the second, the first,
Very nice. And her shoes,
which are
handmade,
wonderful,
with little,
wonderful examples.
little trim, little silk trim on the shoes.
And red shoes for girls have been popular since the 18th century.
I just went to an estate sale and picked up a pair of red boots for a little girl child.
And this embroidery is called embroidery anglaise.
Beautiful.
And that looks like it's all hand done, which should be done at this period.
And she's carrying her little basket, which looks like it was almost a little Indian woven basket. She's carrying her basket. She was a covered wagon doll, so she came across the prairie. And they would have met Indians along the way, and they would have traded goods. And this would have been something someone possibly would have given her. And in fact, we actually think the little beads that go with this calico red dress might have been Indian traded. She's got her little calico dress, her big deep hem again, and a wonderful little apron.
And aprons were very important, both for adult females and for girls in the 19th century.
It
And they had-
protected the garments.
They had both utilitarian ones and fancy ones for dress-up occasions.
Okay, this particular girl is very fortunate. She has 2 pairs of pantalettes. 2 pairs. And we have the lovely lace detail on that. And we have a lovely slip, petticoat, excuse me. Sorry, and don't say sorry. I'm here to learn too. We have this lovely petticoat that wouldn't that have looked very nice under that red gingham dress? Has this
And
little
this-
stripe. Doesn't that
And
look
this
like a
woven
flower
band here
sack or something?
is also going to help, the weave of this is going to help hold it out a little,
Keep
give
it
it a little bit more
A little more body.
oomph. Yeah.
We have a party dress here, and this is the big question on these socks. Machined or hand?
I can't see. Mary?
Let's pull them out of the bag quick. That's a nice way, by the way, to keep your things together, is to just have them in little bags. But machined or knit, I kind of,
Yeah, again, I would have to,
what do you think? I thought
these are hand knit.
That's what I thought.
Those are hand knit.
Okay. All right, right on one, but learned a little bit on the other. So the hand knit socks. She has her party dress, another slip that has a big hem again to help to keep it out. And
And these garments would have been sized when they were,
they would have had like a starch or a
Starch,
sizing or
yes.
something in them.
but it's best if the sizing is removed from them today because the sizing does not help and it draws insects.
It's a very important point. And this girl has been protected. I've kept her clothes in some plastic cellophane. We've got another party dress on the end, Anne, and one of my favorite items, which is her little nightie and her little napkin, woven napkin from the period that's now made into a little shawl.
Now, if she had a peignoir, that would have been open, it would have been exactly the same cut as this, but it would have opened all the way down. But we can see here that you're 100% correct in identifying this as a nightgown because it's closed
It's
from the
closed
waistline
for
down.
modesty. And she has her little shawl, and she's fortunate. Our little girl has some stitchery pieces that came with her. This is Darling, the My Kitten stitchery. Her little books, which we have here.
And I love the little green one, which is all about dolls.
I know, isn't that fun? It's this darling little book.
Open the book, because the book is just delicious.
All about dolls. She's a doll that wants to know about dolls.
Yeah.
She's a curious girl. She has a curious mind. She has her little patchwork silk pillow to lay her head on if she were going in it for a carriage ride. And she has a little tiny quilt piece that might have gone across her lap to keep her warm. And
Just
the
a
coup de
wonderful-
grace.
Yeah.
The coup de grace
Put
here.
it on her.
Her stunning bonnet. And being out in the prairie, you had to have the bonnet to protect your skin and your shoulders. And last
Now,
but
if
not
she is
least,
not the quintessential American girl of the mid-19th century, there is no,
that's right. And she, last but not least, had some paper dolls that we're going to share with you too, that were in her collection of things. Our little girl that had this doll played heartily, don't you think?
and happily.
Happily. That's right. So from the Grovian Doll Museum, it's been my pleasure to share this wonderful doll that I've had in my collection since I was,
A
My
few
gosh.
years younger.
yeah, since about the time I wanted to celebrate my, what is it, the 40th anniversary of my 20th birthday or something. I've had her in my collection for a very long time, and she is a doll that has brought a lot of joy into my life, just knowing her. And now,
And may she continue to bring great pleasure
That's
to you
right.
for many more years to come, Mary.
I love her. And what I truly love is having this moment right now that the person that inspired me to want to have this doll is here with me today.
Well, it's my joy.
And it's our joy together to share this doll with you.